I'm Jim Scott, chairman of the Tripp Scott Law Firm, and today we're welcoming our guest who is Senator Mike Haridopolos, who is president of the Florida State Senate and is also a candidate for the United States Senate. So we'll call you Senator for a long time. Okay. I thought today maybe you would start out by telling us a little bit about your session. You just finished the legislative session in a very tough budget year, and with a lot of challenges to make some changes in the status quo in government. So if you'd like to recap a little bit of that for us, I'm sure everybody'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. In the state of Florida this year, we faced the largest budget shortfall in the history of the state of Florida, $3.820 billion. But we made a pledge back in November, 2 weeks after the election, that we would not raise taxes or fees to make up for that shortfall. We're going to reduce spending in the state of Florida. And that made some very tough decisions, but not unlike families and businesses have already made. And so we're simply going to tighten our belt as families and businesses already have. And so we made that pledge, and we worked from November all the way through the first week of May in meeting that pledge. And I'm happy to report we did exactly as we promised. No new taxes, no new fees, and we reduced the budget by $3.820 billion. In fact, we also had about $308 million in tax relief. So that was our number one goal, so that the cost to do business, let alone raise a family in Florida, would not go up. And in fact, in this case, it actually went down. I think first and foremost, we need to think long-term, not just short-term. We made a short-term, I think, positive decision in reducing spending, reducing taxes. But the long-term decisions, I think, are in three areas. First and foremost, tackling Medicaid. It's the most expensive program in state government right now. It's 1/3 of our entire budget, and the rules are dictated out of Washington. We passed a law this year. They'll give us flexibility on Medicaid. Medicaid, of course, being the low-cost health insurance program for low-income individuals. It's not Medicare, which you pay for your own taxes. This is, again, a welfare program, and there are 2.9 million Floridians on it. We reformed the program so that it's patient-centered instead of being, of course, government-centered. Second, we reformed pensions. Since 1975, state workers have not had to pay into their own retirement accounts, the only in the state in the union to do so. This year, we require state workers to contribute 3% of their salary into their own retirement fund. We think that's the right thing to do. And then third and finally, we reformed the education system. We wanted to pay for performance, meaning we want the best teachers to get paid a little bit more. That's common sense. Plus, we phased out tenure as we know it. Tenure, no one should have a guaranteed job, and so we reformed those programs, again, thinking long-term, not just short-term.
And I know also that you personally promoted in some proposals for the ballot for the people to vote on this next year. You want to tell us about those?
Absolutely, there's two. Again, long-term thoughts. One is I do not support what is now known as Obamacare. I think it's a bad move, and I think it empowers the government at the expense of the individual. And so we've passed health care freedom that eliminates the mandate that says if you don't buy insurance, there's a $400 fine. Second is the idea of what's called smart cap, or I call it the Old Testament option, meaning that we should never overspend when times are good. Story of Joseph. When times are good, don't eat all your corn. So when times go bad, you don't have to eat sand. So we put a spending limit in place where state government spending cannot grow faster than CPI and population. Any extra revenue that comes in will only go to one of two places, either into the rainy day fund or the savings account, or, of course, in tax relief. We think that's the best long-term strategy. So when this economy recovers, government doesn't overspend. And those will be two options that the voters of Florida will have in November of 2012.
What else about the session? I observed you quite a bit, and you certainly put together a great leadership team, and I showed tremendous leadership as president of the Senate, which is obviously a very important role. Do you have any more issues you'd like to talk about, or anything else about the session?
Well, I think the biggest one is that for years, a lot of these tough issues, whether it be the entitlement program of Medicaid, whether it be the pension issue, even education, they've always swept those issues under the rug. As I have my opportunity to lead, I wanted to lead by example and not just talk about issues or sweep them under the rug, but to confront the issues long term. When you have an opportunity to make a difference, you need to take that opportunity. And that's why we made the reforms we talked about today in Medicaid and education and pension, and put long-term spending plans in place that reduce spending and, of course, balance the budget. I think that was an incredible agenda that I shared with Dean Cannon, the Speaker of the House, and our new Governor, Rick Scott. Meaning we didn't want to be the typical politician, hold a press conference and nothing happens. We did just the opposite. We tackled the big problems. But I must admit there's two things that we left on the table. First and foremost, there's a man named William Dillon. He served 27 years behind bars for a crime he did not commit. I felt that he should be compensated for his loss of freedom. Sadly, the House chose not to pass it. We did in the Senate. The second was the case of Eric Brody. And as opposed to being confined to a prison cell, Eric Brody's been confined to a wheelchair for 13 years because a state worker recklessly rammed into his car speeding to work one day, and he is now quadriplegic. I think a person like that should be compensated, in this case, not from state money, but from insurance companies. So in that regard, there's still some things we left on the table, but as a whole, a complete success. We outlined 5 big issues: balanced budget, no new taxes; a long-term spending cap or spending limit for the state; pension reform; education reform; and of course the idea of Medicaid reform. We accomplished all that. That's a good thing. There's always work to do, and it's all about creating jobs right here in Florida.
I didn't mention earlier about your family. I understand your daughter Reagan had a birthday recently, and you want to tell us a little bit about your family?
Well, I think it's the most important thing. It's the reason why I entered public life. First and foremost, the name Haridopolos is not Irish. Okay, it's Greek. And my dad was actually born in Athens, Greece, so I'm a first-generation American. And here I am, I have the opportunity to serve in the Florida Senate. And what this is all about is the fight for the future. Each of us have been blessed in so many ways by parents who sacrificed so we might find some success. The question is, what will happen for the next generation? This is why I'm running for the United States Senate, because my daughter Reagan, who just turned 5, I question, what is America going to be like? That's why I'm wholeheartedly supportive of a balanced budget amendment. Don't raise the debt ceiling. Let's reform not just the programs like Medicaid, which I took on, but also Medicare and Social Security, so we can think long term. This is all about the future. And I've had incredible blessings because of the sacrifice of my parents. We need to transfer that to the next generation of Americans. And so as I pursue the U.S. Senate race against Bill Nelson, it's a clear contrast between a person who talks a lot, has a lot of press conferences, which is Bill Nelson, versus a guy who, like myself, who's really worked hard and, more importantly, provided results for people in reforming government, reducing spending, and taking on the big issues as opposed to just talking about them. And this is what the fight is for, to keep America strong, because in my humble opinion, America is not broken. Washington, D.C. is broken, and we need to send people who have experience, a record of accomplishment, not just talking about what they'd like to do in Washington.
Right. We're so delighted that you could visit with us today, and I might just one comment, to change the status quo, and as you know, I had a lot of years in government, it's very difficult, and to take it on and show that you can get some results is something that's really to be proud of as President of the Florida Senate, and I'm sure it's something that maybe the whole country could use in the future. So thanks for being with us
Well,
today.
thank you very much, Jim, and thanks for your leadership. As I always like to say, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. Florida is soon to be the 3rd largest state because of leaders like yourself. And again, we need to think long term so we can pass those blessings on to the next generation. So thanks for the opportunity.